So a lot of you have been asking me, with the current state of Fujifilm, with the firmwares that keep getting worse and worse, if I was to switch away from the system, which camera would I buy? Well, in today's video we're going to talk about that. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Thierry Gibraltar and I'm a full-time photographer and videographer based in Tokyo, Japan. I mostly focus on couples, meaning that I shoot engagement session, proposals, pre-wedding, weddings and elopements as well. And I do both photography and videography, right? I need a setup that allows me to do both, meaning both photography and videography. And I definitely need something that is reliable. If I shoot a wedding or an elopement, it's a one-time thing, right? Same for a proposal. I cannot ask my clients to do it again, right? Can you cry again? Can you propose again? Or can you read your vows again because my camera shut down or my camera could not focus? That is not something that I can do or that I can live with, right? So I need first a system that is reliable. And recently with the AF issues, well, the Fujifilm system hasn't been reliable. We have to face it, the autofocus is getting worse and worse. Now, I also want my system to be relatively light. And by light, I don't mean to have a pocket camera everywhere. By light, I mean a system with both camera and lenses that I feel comfortable carrying around all day and that I feel like it's not slowing me down, right? At the end of the day, I don't want to feel like I don't want to take more shots because my back is hurting, or I don't want to set up my camera in a certain way because I'm tired of it, right? I want something that I feel comfortable using and that will not basically hinder my capacity to take shots. And finally, redundancy is an important factor for me. I don't want to have only one camera. If I was to switch system, I would buy two cameras. Currently I have the X-T5 and the X-H2S. And well, if I was to switch system, definitely I would need two cameras as well. So price is also a factor. I don't want to have to, invest in like a 10,000 times 2 setup, because that would not be, I would say, worth it for the kind of work and the kind of overall projects that I do. Now I also sometimes work on more, I would say, high-end projects, but for this kind of project I would just rent the cameras that I need. So that is not really, I would say, to take into consideration for this kind of topic. So this year I had the chance to test a lot of cameras. I was reviewing cameras for Pro News, and because of that, they basically arranged for makers to send me a few cameras and test it. Now, I could not test them as much as I would have liked to, meaning for a long time, right? But usually it was like for a week or maximum 2 weeks, which is honestly not enough time for me to really test everything that I want. But that's the amount of time that I had, and at least I could try them out. And I would say that the best camera that I've tried the past year was definitely the Nikon Z8. The Nikon Z8 was, for me, I would say, overall the best camera that has good autofocus capabilities, is really reliable, good battery life, video and photo is amazing. And it also produces RAW. Now you may ask, why do you need RAW? Well, it depends on the workflow that I have. Sometimes I work on projects where I need the RAW capabilities to be able to plug myself within the workflow of the particular project. So having it is great, and also the fact that you have more colors to play with, more latitude with your picture, with your image, is always great. Now the size of the Z8 was also okay. I would say a bit on the heavier side compared to my current system for sure, but it was fine, I would say. And definitely lighter than the Nikon Z9. The Z8 is pretty much the Z9 without having the battery grip, right? So overall I was pretty happy already with the Z8. The only issue that I have with the Nikon Z8 is the fact that it cost about $4,000. If I have to buy two Nikon Z8 for my setup, that's definitely a bigger investment, and I'm not sure if it would make sense for the particular work that I do, right? It's a great camera for sure, definitely more expensive than my current setup, And that's why I would say that for the Z8, while it was the best camera that I tested, and maybe a camera that I would have kind of gravitated around, I never thought really about purchasing it. Now fast forward a few months, maybe I forgot 1 month or 2 months ago, Nikon released the Nikon Z6 Mark III. Now the Nikon Z6 Mark III compared to the Z8, basically you lose some capabilities. You don't have 8K anymore, which for me is totally fine. I do not need the 8K resolution. However, you have 6K 60 frames per second, which is good if you want to have some oversample and have some slow motion, which is always good to have for the kind of work that I do. Now, compared to the Z8, you go from, I think, 40 plus megapixel to 26 megapixel, which is totally fine. On the X-H2S that is filming me right now, you don't have 40 megapixel, you have 24 something megapixel, and it works totally fine. You have RAW capabilities internally with the Z6 Mark III. You have a body that works great for photos and videos, and that is even lighter than Nikon Z8, right? I think the Nikon Z6 Mark III is around 700 grams or so, and the Z8 is a little bit more like 900 grams or something. But the big advantage of the Z6 Mark III compared to the Z8 is that it is $2,500. And $2,500 is exactly the price of my Fujifilm X-H2S, right? The camera that is recording me right now is also at $2,500. Now, when you compare both the Z6 Mark III and the X-H2S, of course, the Z6 Mark III is newer, right? So you have different capabilities that will not be in the X-H2S, but overall, both systems are quite comparable. Of course, the Z6 Mark III is full frame. The X-H2S is APS-C. Now, the Z6 Mark III doesn't have open gate while the X-H2S has it, but the Z6 Mark III has 6K 60 frames per second. Both have 4K 120 frames per second, and for having played with the Z6 Mark III for only a week, unfortunately, I would say that the autofocus on the Z6 Mark III is way superior to the Fujifilm X-H2S, right? It works well, it just works perfectly. I mean, perfectly, I don't know, it's only tested it a week again, but it worked well in my test. And just for that, if autofocus is a big issue and doesn't get solved in the future, the Z6 Mark III with a comparable price is definitely something that I would consider. Now, of course, there are other cameras on the market, right? I haven't tested yet, but there is the new Canon R5 with Mark II or something, I forgot. There is also the R1, which is also a bit more expensive camera. But my point is that there are more and more cameras on the market that are released every day, right? Now, I do enjoy shooting Fujifilm, but it's true that because of the issues that I encounter at the moment, it's a bit complicated for me, if the issues are not fixed in the future, to keep shooting again and again, because it's not only dependent on what I enjoy doing and what I want to do, it's also dependent on what I have to do right now. It's my work, so if I cannot do my work with the camera, there is a big issue with that. So I have to consider that as well. Now, of course, you will tell me, well, you can just shoot manual, and it's true. I could shoot everything manual. If you get a camera with autofocus, you expect it to have autofocus, and you expect it to have autofocus that works. So yeah, this argument for me is not, I don't really like this argument when I hear it online, because people basically assume that, okay, if the autofocus doesn't work, it's not a big deal, and you should just work around it. Not really, because it's advertised as a camera with autofocus with subject detection, so it should have the subject detection. And the fact that it fails so much, right? I haven't been too critical of the Fujifilm autofocus system in the past when it had acceptable results for me, but recently, with the current state of the autofocus, especially for video, for photo I can make it work, but for video, no, it's absolutely not working. And it's advertised and sold as a camera with autofocus, so that's why I expect it to have autofocus, right? So that's it. So yeah, all of this to say that yeah, there are cameras out there that can do the job at similar price point, right? And I hope that they fix these issues that are appearing recently more and more with the firmware updates, and that I don't have to switch system, because honestly I don't want to switch system. It's not only about selling and buying another camera, right? It's also selling. You have to sell the glass, you have to like change system overall. I'm used to the menus, I'm used to the workflow with it, but if I have to switch system, it's pretty much changing everything, which is kind of annoying for me, because again, it's also my job, and it's also something that I want to have run smoothly, right? I don't want to have issues or underlying issues that I don't know about. So hopefully things get better, and yeah, now you know the camera that I would be interested in if I was to switch system. Let me know down in the comment what you think about the Nikon Z6 Mark III, and maybe you have other cameras to suggest as well. Thank you for watching today's video, and if you haven't yet, join my newsletter. We're about like 600 there now, and I release articles there or tips and more. So yeah, feel free to join the newsletter, and I'll see you in the next video.